Good evening, everybody. My name is David Klein. I am the president of the City Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, and I welcome you here tonight for our Kol Nidre service. Again, we wish that we were in person and we were able to commemorate this holiday together, but we are thrilled nonetheless to be here with you virtually. Please let me introduce Rabbi Tzemah Yoreh.
Welcome everyone to this day of affliction. I have now some prepared remarks. Each year, we begin with a clean, bright, new moment. By the time the year ends, threads of memory and desire have wrapped around us and trapped us in their complex webs. What we began with is long lost as our year ends. The sparks of that first bursting moment of light have been scattered throughout the moment of our lives.
Cheshbon hanefesh. How shall we know what is right? Searching within, seeking to understand. Cheshbon hanefesh. What is our task? How can we bridge the gap of thought and deed? How can we succeed? Finding the way, building a better world. This is our quest.
Candles. United with Jews the world over, we gather to proclaim a new year. The many branches of this menorah represent the many ways to be Jewish. May it be a year of hope and not of despair. May it be a year of vision and not of darkness. May it be a year of life and not of death. Let the fire we kindle be for us a warming flame, whose brightness shows us the path of life. May the dancing flames of these candles kindle warmth within our hearts, wisdom in our minds, and passion in our lives. These candles give light to all who behold them. May we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. Their brightness reminds us of our ancestors, who have brought their light into our lives. Without hope, even the day is like night, but with hope, even the darkness becomes light.
How wonderful is the light within the world. How wonderful is the light within each person. How wonderful is the light of the holiday.
The journey. One day, you finally knew what you had to do and began. Though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble, and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations, though their melancholy was terrible. It was already late enough, and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voices behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice which you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life you could save.
According to the Bible, Yom Kippur is a day of affliction. As it says, "You shall afflict yourself and shall do no work, for on this day shall atonement be made for you to cleanse you." Affliction, we are led to believe, acts as a purging agent, but what this entails is not specifically defined. Fasting seems to have been the affliction of choice of the psalmist, but this was not without controversy. The prophet Isaiah challenged people whose fast was insincere and who posed as humble and self-righteous. He taught that acts of self-abnegation were no substitute for deeds on behalf of others. For humanistic Jews, the question of whether or not to fast is a matter of choice, not commandment. Many see the practice of fasting as an archaic ritual that brings unnecessary discomfort. They also do not feel that it is necessary to voluntarily deprive themselves of food for one day in order to be more compassionate towards those who suffer from hunger daily. For them, it is not our fasting that is required, but our feeding of others. It is not the humbling of ourselves that is needed, but the helping of those who find themselves humbled. Others among us also affirm these lessons and continue to fast. Some believe that when we control our appetites on Yom Kippur, we remember that on other days we can be masters, not slaves of our desires. They do not regard fasting as a form of self-affliction, but as an annual opportunity to focus on reflection and atonement. For them, fasting enhances introspection and contemplation without the distractions of worldly indulgences. Others simply want to link themselves to tradition and family ties. They believe that fasting is a way to make a connection to their heritage. Each one of us will choose our own way and our own explanation. There are no right or wrong answers. There are only possibilities and choices. Whichever path we follow, let us be grateful for the freedom to ponder these decisions and the luxury of having ample food and drink that we can and may choose to forego.
Ashareinu, Matov Kalkeinu, Umanayim Goraleinu. Ashareinu, Matov Kalkeinu, Umayafe Yerushatenu. Ashareinu, Matov Kalkeinu, Umanayim Goraleinu. Ashareinu, Maltov Kalkeinu, Uma Yafe Yerushatenu.
Kol Nidre, all vows. We are every single one of us, all forgiven for all we did, what we said we'd do and didn't, for imperfect lives we lead each day, anxiety and pettiness, for not understanding, for judging and judging. To be human is to forgive. To be human is to break promises, to forget and then to start all over again.
Kol Nidre, a declaration that holds us in its grip. For hundreds of years, dating back to at least the 8th century, the Yom Kippur service has begun with the chanting of Kol Nidre, which is not a prayer, but a legal formula that released Jews from their vows. At first, the text canceled vows that we had made since last Yom Kippur and were unable to fulfill in the year gone by. Later, the text was rewritten to nullify vows that we will be unable to fulfill in the year ahead. Not surprisingly, many people have had a problem with this text and the loophole that it offers. A 9th century sage called it a foolish custom. Anti-Semites seized on the notion that the oath of a Jew is worthless. In response, apologist rabbis scurried to defend the integrity of Jews and said that Kol Nidre was not meant to apply to oaths made before courts of law, but before God. Many modern Jews have denounced the passage altogether. Nonetheless, Kol Nidre survives even among some secular Jews whose efforts to expunge it from their services are often overruled by popular appeal. Listening to Kol Nidre. As we listen to Kol Nidre, let its sound reach to the center of our beings. Let its melody sink to the depth of our souls. In listening to the Kol Nidre melody, we experience in our innermost hearts the torment of our disappointments and losses, our broken vows and resolutions. It is a reminder of the distance between what we are and what we wish to be. In order to change the world, we must understand the limits of the world. In order to change ourselves, we must know our own limits.
Kol Nidre, Visarei, Vecharamei, Vechonamei, Vachinuyei, Vachinusei, Ushevot, Yom Kippurim zeh, ad Yom Kippurim haba. Amen.
We forgive those we firmly love because anger hurts, a coal that burns and smolders, still scorching the tissues inside, blistering wherever it touches so that we bury the hot clinkers in a mound of caring, suffocate the sparks with promises, drown them in tears, reconciling. We forgive mostly not from strength, but through imperfections, for memory wears transparent as a glass with the pattern washed off, till we stare past what injured us. We forgive because we too have done the same to others, easy as a mudslide, or because anger is a fire that must be fed, and we are too tired to rise and haul a log.
Let us challenge bad habits and restrain destructive tendencies.
Let us be people of decency.
Let us express honest feelings and affirm positive beliefs.
Let us be people of integrity.
Let us reject ancient demons and renounce made-up excuses.
Let us take responsibility for our own lives.
Let us face difficult challenges and confront trying times.
Let us be people of resolve.
Let us oppose indifference and overcome inertia.
Let us take action.
Let us seek out fair solutions and champion just decisions.
Let us be people of purpose.
Let us annul false promises and repudiate empty pledges.
Let us be true to our word.
Loving life. Loving life and its mysterious source with all our heart and all our spirit and all our senses and strength, we take upon ourselves and into ourselves these promises: to care for the earth and those who live upon it, to pursue justice and peace, to love kindness and compassion.
We rise up each morning, and the earth rises too. World weary, we rise up, and we want something new. A world where compassion falls freely as rain. A world where all people can live without pain, inclusive of all and rejecting of none, where love touches all lives like the warmth of the sun. No abuse and no hatred, no prisons of fear, as the cry of the shofar celebrates the new year. If we open our hearts to the love waiting there, we can have the power to heal our despair. If we open hearts, if we open our eyes, if we open our minds, a world without sorrow, a world without pain, a world where compassion falls freely as rain, a world where all people are united as one. If we open our hearts, if we open our minds, if we open our hearts.
Welcome, everyone. Kol Nidre is usually a time to look at your commitments and see how you may need to adjust them. It is a time for renewal and rejuvenation, a time for promising to improve. We are in the midst of a storm. The coronavirus rages unabated, and a seemingly endless deluge of horrific incidents of racial injustice and protest rack our cities. A storm can wash away detritus and bring freshness into the world, but we must wait for that. Right now, we are in the middle of it. In the midst of the storm, we seek refuge. My refuge has been for many years the great works of world literature, and one of the dearest works, for me, has been the book of Ruth in the Hebrew Bible. It is a book about how love and compassion overcome privilege and prejudice, and change a system for the better. And though traditionally it is read on Shavuot, it is a story for our time, and now especially so, since our own dear Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died, and this is a fitting eulogy for her. For those of you who are familiar with this gem of a story, bear with me. I will tell it through a somewhat different lens. The story is set at a time of horrible famine. People are forced to relocate or starve, and the family of Naomi find themselves foreign refugees in the land of Moab. Moabites are often the enemies of the Israelites, so this relocation is not without its perils. They find haven and welcome, however, in Moab, and Naomi's sons intermarry with Moabite women, though this is entirely prohibited according to the Torah. Then disaster strikes again, and Naomi's husband and sons die. Naomi is now alone in the world, without the status and security family gives her, without the privilege of being a native Moabite. This is especially horrendous for Naomi, who is elderly and cannot support herself. The one glimmer of positive news is that the famine is finally over in Judea and she can go home. She starts the long journey back to Judea, an old and broken woman, but lo, with her come her two erstwhile daughters-in-law, offering what they can in support. She pleads with them to leave 3 times. One of her daughters-in-law accedes and turns her back, returning to Moab. Ruth does not. She vows, "Wherever you shall go, I shall go too. Wherever you sleep, I shall sleep. Your people is my people, and your God is my God. Wherever you die, I shall die too, and there I shall be buried. So help me God, only death will separate us." Naomi lets her come. Love bridges all divides, and thus, just like Naomi, Ruth becomes a refugee from her homeland, forsaking all privilege and safety to help another person. In Judea, it is the time of reaping barley, and Ruth, who is yet young, gathers sheaves at the edges of the fields, and follows the reapers, gathering what they drop. She doesn't know it, but by chance she finds herself in the field of Boaz, a distant relative of Naomi's. Ruth is a foreign woman, alone. She speaks a foreign language and risks abuse, but she needs to feed her mother-in-law. Boaz finds out who Ruth is, and in an outpouring of compassion comes to her and says, "I have been told all of what you did for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband, how you went out to a foreign land where you knew no one. May you be granted proper recompense for your great act of compassion. This statement comes from a male with the greatest status and privilege in the city of Bethlehem, a man of property, a member of the tribe of Judah, the prince of tribes. Ruth lacks all status, all privilege, and all advantage, and yet Boaz speaks to Ruth as an equal, recognizing her for the greatness of her act, creating a bridge of compassion extended from Boaz to Ruth. But a bridge requires two ends. Ruth recognizes the bridge that Boaz creates and extends her own bridge to meet him. For though she lacks privilege and status in her new homeland, in the most important way they are equals. They are both compassionate human beings. Making herself completely vulnerable, she walks on her bridge and meets Boaz in the field at night and asks him to spread his mantle over her in protection and embrace. Boaz accepts. There are a few more twists to this story, but in the end, Boaz and Ruth marry extra-legally, and Ruth gives birth to a child, who Naomi fosters, and we are made to understand is the ancestor of the great King David. This story will always demonstrate to me most poignantly that systemic privilege, societal status, and social class, even legal norms, can always be bridged with love and compassion, and when they are, something wonderful is brought into the world. We just need to reach out. That is why my eldest son is named Boaz. In our racked and riven country, the bridges of compassion and forgiveness are created every day by people thrust into the spotlight because their dearest ones have been killed or grievously injured. David Whitley, an Orlando Sentinel reporter, remarked, "The great irony of protesting is how the people who most deserve to get angry are often the voices of reason. The depressing part is how their pleas are routinely ignored." Julia Jackson, the mother of Jacob Blake, called out, "To all police officers, I pray for you. Everybody, let's use our hearts and intelligence to work together to show the world how humans are supposed to treat each other. And to the protesters, please don't burn up property and cause havoc and tear your own homes down in my son's name." I fervently hope that her call, and the call of so many compassionate people seeking to bring peace, is heeded. So as we seek a haven in the storms that beset us this year, please know that we can bridge these divides between us, even if it seems entirely unlikely. I believe this to be true. Shana Tova. At City Congregation, we have a tradition of reading passages from literature that sometimes inspire and sometimes provoke thought. Tonight, we seek inspiration and refuge, and thus we will read the Book of Ruth, narrated by Max Zenner. I will then conclude with excerpts from one of the most powerful works of oratory ever composed, the speech of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I Have a Dream. Thank you.
In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of the first one was Orpah, and the name of the other, Ruth. When they had lived there for about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, so that the woman was left without her 2 sons or her husband. So she set out from the place where she had been living, she and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead, and with me. The Lord grant you that you may find security, each of you in the house of your husband." They said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Well, why will you go with me? Do I still have sons in my womb that may become your husbands? Go back, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I should have a husband tonight and bear sons, will you then wait until they were grown? Would you refrain from marrying? No, my daughters. It has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me." Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So she said, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you, or turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you." When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. So the two of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women said, "Is this Naomi?" And she said to them, "Call me no longer Naomi. Call me Mara, for the Lord has dealt harshly with me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me." Now, Naomi had a kinsman on her husband's side, a prominent rich man of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain, behind someone in whose sight I might find favor." She said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she went. She came and gleaned in the field behind the reapers. As it happened, she came to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Boaz said to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, "To whom does this young woman belong?" The servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, "She is the Moabite who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She came and she has been on her feet from early this morning until now without resting even for a moment." Then Boaz said to Ruth, "Now listen, my daughter, do not go glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Keep your eyes on the field that is being reaped and follow behind them. I have ordered the young men not to bother you. If you get thirsty, go to the vessels and drink from what the young men have drawn." Then she fell prostrate with her face to the ground and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your sight that you should take notice of me when I'm a foreigner?" But Boaz answered her, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told me, and how you left your father and your mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before." At mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come here and eat some of this bread, and dip your morsel in the sour wine." So she sat beside the reapers, and he heaped up for her some parched grain. She ate until she was satisfied, and she had some left over. When she got up to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, "Let her glean, even among the standing sheaves, and do not reproach her. You must also pull out some handfuls for her from the bundles, and leave them for her to glean. And do not rebuke her." So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Her mother-in-law said to her, "Where did you glean today, and where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, "The name of the man with whom I worked today is Boaz." Then Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "Blessed be he by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead." Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, I need to seek some security for you, so that it may be well with you. Now, here is our kinsman Boaz, with whose young women you've been working. See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Now, wash and anoint yourself, and put on your best clothes, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known." So she went down to the threshing floor, and did just as her mother-in-law had instructed her. When Boaz had eaten and drunk, and he was in a contented mood, he went to lie down at the end of a heap of grain. Then she came quietly and uncovered his feet and lay down. At midnight the man was startled and turned over, and there, lying at his feet, was a woman. He said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your cloak over your servant, for you are next of kin." He said, "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. This last instance of your loyalty is better than the first, for you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not be afraid. I will do for you all that you ask, for all the assembly of my people know that you are a worthy woman. But now, though it is true that I am a near kinsman, there is another kinsman more closely related than I. Remain this night, and in the morning, if he will act as next of kin for you, good, let him do so. If he is not willing to act as next of kin for you, then so help me, I will act as next of kin for you. Lie down until morning." No sooner had Boaz gone up to the gate in the morning and sat down there than the next of kin, of whom Boaz had spoken, came passing by. So Boaz said, "Come over, friend, sit down here." And he went over and sat down. Then Boaz took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, "Sit down here." So they sat down. He then said to the next of kin, "Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to her kinsman Elimelech." He said, "I will redeem it." Then Boaz said, "The day you acquire the field from the hand of Naomi, you are also acquiring responsibility over Ruth the Moabite, the widow of the dead man, to maintain the dead man's name on his inheritance." At this, the next of kin said, "I cannot redeem it for myself without damaging my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it." Then Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "Today you are witnesses that I have acquired from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech, and all that belonged to Chilion and Mahlon, including Ruth the Moabite, the wife of Mahlon, to be my wife, to maintain the dead man's name on his inheritance, in order that the name of the dead may not be cut off." Then all the people who were at the gate, along with the elders, said, "We are witnesses." So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When they came together, the Lord made her conceive, and so she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, "May his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has borne him."
I will now read excerpts from one of the most famous works of oratory ever composed, I Have a Dream by Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon of light, of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring the sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. The sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right down in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. From every mountainside let freedom ring. And when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last.
There's a place with answers we are seeking. There's a place to find our light of hope. Where's the strength to realize our vision? Yesh mechon betuchenu. Yesh mechon betuchenu. Look within yourself, you'll find it there. There's a place with wisdom that can guide us There's a place where we know what's right or wrong. Where's the path to peace that we all long for? Yesh mechom betukeinu, yesh mechom betukeinu. Look within yourself, you'll find it there.
Throughout the high holidays, our focus is on forgiveness, repair, and renewal. On Rosh Hashanah, we begin the process of self-reflection. By tradition, some Jews enact the tashlich ritual by throwing their sins into the sea or a river and letting them float away. Tomorrow on Yom Kippur, we will recite together collectively a list of failings. As a community, we will forgive others and ask their forgiveness. Tonight at Kol Nidre, let us contemplate our own personal and private misdeeds. Let us forgive ourselves for having failed our own standards. Let us treat ourselves as we would friends by putting our failures behind us and starting anew, trying to do better this time. Forgiveness starts one step at a time, one day at a time, one breath at a time, and we say to ourselves, I acknowledge my misdeeds, I admit my wrongdoing, I strive to forgive myself my imperfections. I strive to do better and to improve my ways, for in the end, it is always up to me how I will write the pages of the book of my life for the year ahead. As Jews, when we forget our identity, we diminish ourselves and our families.
Let us proclaim anew our ties to our people and our history.
When we neglect the lessons of our heritage, we lose sight of time-honored truths.
Let us proclaim anew an eagerness to learn from the experiences of our past.
When we forget our heroes and martyrs, we deny the strength and inspiration of human bravery.
Let us proclaim anew the courage of our ancestors.
As humans, when we succumb to temptation, we allow our higher selves to be subverted by negative impulses.
Let us proclaim anew our belief in self-improvement and self-control.
When we suppress our optimism with cynicism, we turn hope into despair.
Let us proclaim anew our belief in humanity.
When we shirk our responsibility to make a difference, we discredit our ability to effect change.
Let us proclaim anew our belief in human potential. Im ein ani li mili, וכשאני לעצמי מני, ואם לא עכשיו אימתי, ואם לא עכשיו אימתי, ואם לא עכשיו אימתי, ואם לא עכשיו אימתי, Who will be my befriender if I'm not my own defender? But if I'm for myself alone, what am I? And if not now, oh, tell me when. This day will not come again. This day will not come again. Time goes by. Who will tend my neighbor's needs? Who will sow tomorrow's seeds? Who will answer for my deeds? If not I, and if not now, oh, tell me when. This day will not come again. This day will not come again. Time goes by. Im ein ani li mili, וכשאני לעצמי מני, ואם לא עכשיו אימתי,
Personal responsibility. We might be compared to a flame in our fragility. A human being is a minute entity in the vast universe. Our physical power is slight, yet a single human act of kindness or love illuminates like the candle's flame. One person has the potential to push back the darkness, to bring clarity where none has existed. We change the world through the actions of individuals. I bear responsibility as a Jew and as a humanist to do my part to make the world as I wish it to be. Reflection is only the first step in the process of change. I must ask myself what I can do, what actions I can take to make this a better world for all humankind.
Yom Kippur is a day of memory.
We remember those who taught us to laugh and to cry.
We remember those who held us and whom we held.
We remember those who loved us and whom we loved.
There are stars whose radiance is visible on earth, though they have long been extinct.
There are people whose brilliance continues to light the world, though they are no longer among the living.
In their memory we pledge
to cherish the teachings they bequeathed to us,
to honor their highest ideals,
to live our lives to their fullest.
We will now pause for 1 minute of silence.
Zecher tzadikim liveracha, Zecher tzadikim liveracha, liveracha, liveracha. Zecher tzadikim liveracha.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again tomorrow.